Hello everyone and welcome to 20 Minute Marketing. We are now at episode 16. This will probably be the last episode that gets out in 2019, to be honest. But I just wanted to start by saying a quick thank you to all of the guests throughout the year that have given up their time to join. I know that I've learned an incredible amount from them myself, and I've no doubt that you guys have too. I'd also like to wish everyone a wonderful Christmas and New Year, and I'm sure that I'll see you all very shortly in the new year with episode 17, whenever that is ready. So yeah, let's get started with this episode, number 16, right away. Today's guest is Geoff Crain, who is the director at Kingstar Media, who are one of Canada's largest digital agencies. So hi, Geoff. I hope you're doing well. Could you start by giving us a quick introduction about yourself and Kingstar?
Hi, Liam. Thanks for having me on today. My background is primarily digital marketing. I kind of grown into the space right out of university and have been in it for about 10 years now. I started on the agency side, working on brands like Coca-Cola and Johnson & Johnson, doing digital buying for them. Then I moved into the affiliate world and was kind of a high volume media buyer there. And over the last 2 years, I have been with Kingstar, kind of focusing on integrating digital with other traditional platforms and have them all attribute and work together.
So quite an extensive background and lots of different channels all over the place, which is going to be great because we're going to actually cover sort of those traditional channels and how you can utilize them when everything else is digital. So yeah, let's get started and talk about some of the traditional marketing channels that you use at Kingstar and the benefits of them, and maybe taking a traditional approach when everyone is using digital channels.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kingstar was built originally as a production company producing infomercials and commercials for kind of direct response-based marketers. From there, we grew into a media agency buying time across TV, radio, print, out of home, and now obviously digital radio as well. Basically, we've kind of worked to transform from being direct response marketers to performance-based marketers, and we try to delve that into every one of the mainstream channels. So when we're buying television, radio, print, out of home, or digital radio, the main focus is still a KPI. So on television, each week we get the station reports. We have a KPI, whether it be web visits, phone calls into a 1-800 number, or installs from the site. We work with our attribution team to attribute every sale, click, and then from there that allows us to optimize. We do the same thing across radio, print, and out of home. While obviously the mediums are a little bit different, the main goal is just to optimize towards the most kind of lowest performant or lowest KPI possible, and then obviously scale up the ones that are performing well.
And how do you go about determining on traditional platforms, whether it's conversions or brand awareness or just exposure? What is the different ways of determining it compared to maybe a digital approach?
Yes, I mean, I think the digital is so great with attribution because the tracking is right done there from the click. You can track it all the way through, especially with advanced pixels like Facebook and Google. It gives you a ton of insight. With the traditional formats, especially television, they're not as developed from an attribution standpoint versus digital. So we do have to do some finessing. Basically, what we do is we know the time that the spot has been aired. We know the exact location that it was aired. We usually work with the client to pair back with either their Google Analytics or internal reporting platform. From there, we can analyze the timestamp and the geolocation, and that allows us to pair it with the spot that ran at the similar time.
And it's interesting as well because, when you write a pay-per-click ad or something, you know that you have a set number of words. How do you go about knowing what to say to people? And is there a set tone or message that you try to put out?
Yeah, so I think we really lean a lot kind of on the brand and or the advertiser and understanding their market and what their messaging is, what kind of demographic they're trying to reach. From there, we'll tailor the station mix and as well as the messaging to that. So it's really kind of on a case-by-case basis, depending on the advertiser.
What are some of the overall benefits to a company who might take the route of radio advertising or TV advertising Is there generally less competition in those fields now, or is it still quite competitive?
So I think the way that we look at it is, and we're working with a number of DTC brands, that has really been a focus for us, and a lot of them are coming on board now. I think with digital, a lot of them start as digital companies. We can take a Trivago, for instance, and they scale up to a certain kind of place on digital, but they're not able to kind of scale farther than a certain way. So what TV and radio does, it kind of opens up a new bucket of users, and it's that mass awareness top of funnel driver. From there, it just creates more people in their top of funnel that they can hit in middle of funnel and bottom of funnel on digital.
And then, do you think that there's a way to blend traditional channels with like new digital channels such as social media, TikTok, Instagram, where maybe millennials might be using more, or do you have to treat them as separate identities almost?
Yeah, no, I definitely think that the strategy should always be to blend it. I mean, we live in this kind of multi-platform, multi-device consumption world where either you're watching television on your phone, you're watching YouTube and you're on your phone. People are consuming 3 to 4 devices at a time sometimes. So the idea is to try to have them pair together. So what we'll do is, if we know that a TV spot is running at a certain time in a kind of a high profile area where there's going to be a lot of eyeballs, we'll bid up our search, especially the terms where we're not in number one position, so that when people do Google anything related to the advertiser or the brand, that the number one spot, paid spot on Google will come up showing their brand. We've seen huge success, especially from the mobile side on Google now, where basically you're only seeing the top 2 paid ads above the fold. You have to scroll down for anything organic. To be in that number 1 and 2 position, if you're running TV or radio, is extremely important. Otherwise, your competitors are going to take away market share by bidding on your terms and being in that position.
Of course, yeah. And then I'm just going to sort of keep going with like the traditional side of things. When you have all of these options like TV, radio, online streaming, podcast advertising, for anyone who's new to it, might not know the difference between putting an ad on a podcast or putting an ad on the radio. What goes behind sort of those decisions, and how do you make that?
Yeah, so I think that you just got to kind of understand where the user is when they're listening to both. So typically for radio, we kind of have an understanding that it's like 60 to 70% of the people are driving in the car while they're listening to radio. With podcasts, it's, I guess, growing more in that regard, but a lot of people listen to it at work, they're listening to it at home. I feel like they're kind of consuming it in a lot of different places. So you just got to try to understand where the consumer is while they're listening. And on traditional radio, if they're driving in the car, they can't really go to their phone and dial the 100 number or Google the spot. So it has to be something that resonates, something that they'll remember, and we'll try to keep the frequency of the ad. So maybe they'll hear it 2 or 3 times on their drive home. Then when they get home, it'll resonate and look. Whereas with kind of digital radio or a podcast, we're looking for like a direct call to action right away. So maybe it's a coupon code or some sort of urgency message where we want them to transact immediately.
And I guess that way, by doing it through that option as well, you've got a way of tracking success.
Absolutely. That makes it a lot easier for sure. Digital radio and podcasts are a lot easier to attribute versus radio, where it's more of kind of like a halo branding effect.
And do you think that recent trends have gone more towards that side of things, or is there still a place for both?
I definitely think that digital radio is taking over, but I mean, you still have the baby boomer demographic who are traditional in their kind of media consumption. They're still going to be listening to the programming that they've been listening to for the last 10, 20 years. They're not going to switch. Obviously, there are going to be some early adopters, but we're still seeing strong kind of results across radio. Again, it really depends on the product. Obviously, if the product's targeting a kind of 20 to 30-year-old man or woman, traditional radio is probably not the best spot. But if it's something for 45, 50 plus, then definitely radio would be included in the mix.
And then I think this is sort of a good question. Say if a company who's never done digital radio or commercial radio or anything like that before woke up one day and said, "Hey, we want to do an ad today. We've never done it before." Where would they even start? Did they need to like research radio stations that might be appropriate, or think about content first, or what do you think they should try and do first?
Yeah, so my first thing would just be, okay, what's my demographic? Then I would, if it's kind of a younger demo, I would look for digital radio. Older, I would look for traditional. And then the next step would be to create some sort of content. So understand the messaging based on the platform that you're going to execute on. And we have a recording studio here in the agency. We have kind of clients come in all the time. It's a simple kind of 1 to 2 hour process. We'll hire some talent to do the voiceover for the spot. We'll have our production team write the script, and then obviously liaise with the brand to make sure they're comfortable with it. And then from there, we just kind of execute the spot. We have a 15 and a 30-second length spot. And then we can kind of go to Spotify, and right now it's kind of a self-serve option. We can just load up the audio file, kind of select the inventory that we want, and it's as simple as that. You can kind of turn it all around literally within 48 hours.
So yeah, not as long as someone who's never done it before might have anticipated. Some people might think that there's a weekly or monthly kind of planning process behind it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like digital radio, especially in radio, it's very kind of quick turnaround, whereas kind of television, print, and out of home, those would definitely be a longer kind of life cycle to execution.
And just now you've mentioned a few different other channels. I'm just going to sort of move away from radio. I read something of yours about direct mail, I believe, which is another traditional marketing channel, and how that sort of is a new way to get at millennials through nostalgia and sort of old school branding. I was wondering if you had anything further to sort of elaborate on that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think we're always looking for ways to reach the younger demo, because they're not consuming media in the same ways that kind of the baby boomers did. So direct mail is a great way, because regardless of your age, if you kind of have a condo or a house, you're going to be getting mail at some point. For there, again, we're looking kind of for an urgency or a coupon or a sale. That's the idea in the direct mail piece, to pitch something that they can transact on immediately. Again, we're performance-based. We want to see some return on the investment. We're not like a brand where it's just kind of a brand message. We're, again, looking for go to x.com and type in 10 off for $10 off this product.
Yep. And I guess now you can even incorporate QR codes and other things as well that, whilst they're still on a paper, they eventually take someone to a digital place, but you don't have the competition of a bidding
Absolutely.
war or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. QR codes, we've seen some great success with it. It obviously takes a little bit of work on the brand side, and they have to be properly integrated. But if they are, then it can be a simple win.
And then, yeah, I think we're touching on like the 15, 16 minutes of the main section. So just a bit of a fun question now. Obviously, every industry is different, so depending on the type of company, it will change. But if you were setting up a brand right now that was like a B2C company, with all of the channels available to you and your experience, where would you start, or what would you focus on the most?
Yeah, so I think that obviously I come from the affiliate world, and I've launched hundreds of Shopify stores and tested a lot digitally. I think the cost to entrance for a digital media is obviously a lot less than television. Typically TV, even in a small market like Canada, small relative to the US to the UK, we're looking for kind of a $50,000 to $75,000 spend per month to get any sort of idea of how it performed. Radio, a little bit less, kind of 20 to 30,000, just to see how it would perform. If you're talking US, the UK, you're probably looking 5 to 10 times that amount. So with that said, I feel like digital is the best way in. You can kind of create a Shopify store now for a relatively affordable price. You can optimize it, and then you can run a Facebook test for $1,000 to $2,000, and you can kind of see if the brand or the product that you're advertising has some sort of life, and build on it from there. And again, like we talked about, Liam, it's like with digital, you get that performance back and the KPIs right away. Whereas with TV and radio, you have to kind of wait kind of 1 or 2 weeks to really see the effects. So for a new brand, you don't really have time or the investment for that. So digital is still, I think, the easiest and lowest cost of entrance.
It's kind of like a good way to summarize, in a sense that maybe those traditional format channels are certainly useful and can add a lot of value to a brand that might have already got up and running. and it's definitely a thing to check out if you've never done it before. But someone who maybe is just starting off might want to take a bit of a safer approach and maybe throw a few cheap pay-per-click ads out and see what happens.
100%. Couldn't agree more. I feel like the traditional radio are for brands or products that are a little bit more developed, maybe a year or two in the life cycle. And yeah, definitely a lot cheaper and more affordable to test digital marketing off the start.
Yeah, so I think we'll leave the main section right there. So got a good taste of how traditional channels work that haven't been mentioned before on the podcast. So if you just stay with us, we're going to touch on some graduate advice very shortly. So we're just going to finish off as normal with graduate advice. As always, if anyone's new to the industry as well, it can apply. So Geoff, could you just tell us a little bit about maybe, I don't know, your experience graduating and how that impacted you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I came out of school and I think like anybody, your first few interviews, you're quite nervous. So my goal was just to get as many interviews as possible, get in the room and start speaking so that you feel comfortable. And chances are the first couple of times are not going to go as well as you think. Again, don't get discouraged. Just keep persevering and pushing through, learn from what you did wrong and parlay it to have a good interview next time. I think for me, it probably took 3 or 4 interviews to land on my first job. And again, it was just, I had a great rapport with the person, with my eventual boss. And it was just more, we had a free flowing discussion where I was comfortable and I was able to get the job. So again, just practice and try your best to be relaxed. Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, for me, from the digital side specifically, I'm spent a lot of my time on Facebook and Google buying, and there are some like fantastic Facebook groups that you can join. If you check out Ad Leaks, there's a gold and a platinum group. The platinum's paid for, but the gold is free. And it was created by Tim Bird, who is kind of, they call him the godfather of Facebook ads. Tons of great content in there. It's a great place to start. And then in addition to that, I mean, YouTube, it's such a great resource. If you just kind of type in how to build Shopify store or how to create my first Facebook campaign, there'll be 15 to kind of 30-minute interviews with kind of high-level experts that will break it down for you simple. That's my best advice.
Yeah, and I think even if someone went into an interview and they said, well, I haven't built a Shopify store before, but I've watched a 30-minute YouTube video, it's almost showing them that you're willing to learn and that you know where to go to find out answers.
Absolutely. Like, I think a lot of people, and especially younger people, get discouraged where it says, oh, you need experience to get this job. And it's tough when you come out of school. Obviously, you don't have any. But just like you said, if you went into the interview and you saw in the job description that your daily job was going to be transacting on Shopify store or building Facebook ads, then just like you said, if you told kind of your potential employer, listen, I haven't maybe kind of purchased any Facebook ads or any Shopify stores, but I have just watched 2 hours of content on this expert explain it, and I have a good understanding.
Do you have any resources for anyone who might just be starting out that could really help them in their knowledge and learning when they're about to go into interviews? Yeah, I think that's sort of even a good place to leave it rather than ask you a few more questions. Find an interview ad, and then the job description, take a couple points out of it and go research them and watch videos in depth.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we'll finish off there. Thank you for being an awesome guest, and I look forward to picking up the podcast next year.